Hello friends, this is Neetu Jain. In this video we are going to talk about change management. So let us see what is the roadmap for today's session. We are going to discuss about what is change, what are the forces for change, what is the change process, what is the force field analysis model of change management, what are the categories of change, why people resist change, and managing resistance to change. Let us see what is change. Change is nothing but any alteration in the status quo of anything. Similarly, the organizational change is any alteration in the people, structure, technology of an organization. Managing change is an important part of any manager's job. Change creates both threats and opportunities. It produces uncertainty. And change is a process which is constant, yet it varies in degree and direction. A change agent is any person who initiates change and assumes the responsibility of bringing about change in any organization. Now let us see the forces for change. There are two forces for change, external forces and internal forces. External forces we all know are pertaining to globalization, changing marketplaces, governmental laws, regulations, technological changes, labor market changes or economic changes. These external forces induce change in an organization. Similarly, several forces which are internal to any organization also induce change. These forces are changes in organizational strategy or cropping up of any human resource problem or maybe change in employee attitude or workforce demographics or any other workforce changes, etc. Now, Kurt Levin's change process. Kurt Lewin suggested that there are three steps in the process of change. First step is unfreezing, second step is changing or moving to a new condition, and third step is refreezing. Unfreezing is the process of breaking down the old customs, traditions, attitudes and behaviors so that people start with a clean slate. This can be achieved by making announcements, holding meetings, promoting the ideas throughout the organization via bulletin boards or maybe personal contacts or arranging group conferences, etc. Second step is changing or moving to the new condition. Now in this step, change must take place. When people are convinced that their behavior is inappropriate, they happily come forward to accept the change. Third step is refreezing. New behavior must replace the old behavior completely for successful change to take place so that it should be reinforced. It should be a way of life in the organization and the old behavior should diminish completely. Now, force field analysis of Kurt Lewin. Kurt Lewin suggested that there are two types of forces. One is driving forces, another one is restraining forces. Driving forces are those forces which are in the direction of change or which direct behavior away from the status quo. And restraining forces are those forces which are opposing the change or which hinder the movement from the existing equilibrium. He further suggested that we need to increase the driving forces and we need to reduce the restraining forces for a successful change to occur. Therefore, if we want change to happen, we need to increase the intensity and direction of driving forces, and similarly we need to reduce the restraining forces which are opposing the change. Then change would successfully happen. Now the categories of change. There are three categories of change. First is structural category, second is technological category, and third one is people related category. A structural category pertains to changing an organization's structural components or its structural design. It could be bringing about change in any of these aspects such as centralization, specialization, formalization, chain of command, span of control and job redesign, etc. Second aspect pertains to technological aspect. It means adopting new equipment, operating tools or methods so that it displaces the old skills and it requires new skills. It means bringing about change in any aspect of technology, for example, automating a system or bringing in computerization, etc. Third category of change is people. It is simply bringing about change in attitudes, expectations, perceptions and behavior of the workforce. Next is why people resist change. There are three levels at which change can be resisted. First is at the level of individual, second is at the level of group, and third one is at the level of organization. Now, the individual resistance to change. Let us see why people resist change at individual level. They may resist change on account of these factors such as old habits, because of fear of unknown, because of dislike of change agent, a person who is bringing about change, obsolescence of skills. They may think that we will have to learn new skills and our current skill set will become obsolete. Another reason could be lack of involvement with change. If we do not involve people in the change process, we do not get their commitment. Therefore, if they are not involved, they tend to resist the change. Next one is threat for existing social relationships. They already have a group in an organization, so they may think that if we adapt to new change, then we will have to build new social ties. That may create problem for them. Next is lack of trust in others. They may lose faith in their peer groups because of new change, because peer group may not support them. They have fear of demotion, that after technology comes in, after the organization automates certain processes, they may be demoted because then their skill set would not be needed further. And then fear of workload. Bringing in new system would enhance workload for a person. Therefore, people resist change on account of these factors. Now, the group resistance to change. A group may resist change because of two factors. First is nature of group dynamics. Second is vested interest. Group dynamics means how cohesive a group is. If a group is more cohesive, then that group has more say in accepting or rejecting the changes in the organization. If a group is less cohesive, then that group will not have any say in accepting or rejecting the changes. Second is vested interest. Some influential members in the group may have some vested interest, and because of that vested interest, they may instigate other members to resist change since they want to satisfy their own interest. Now, organizational resistance to change. So these are the factors as to why an organization as a whole resists change. First is resource constraint. If there are no proper resources in the organization, then definitely people are going to resist change. Second is past history of unsuccessful change attempts. In the past, organization tried to bring in change several times and which have been a failure. So which is why people have this tendency to resist change, because they have seen the failure for those changes. Next is prevailing organizational climate. The current climate in the organization which is prevailing is not supportive, is not conducive for the change elements, for the change process. Therefore, the organization is going to resist the change. Next is interdepartmental conflict leading to unwillingness to cooperate. We all know that there are different departments in the organization. They have different goals, their own vested interest, their own resources, and if there is conflict between two departments, then it would be difficult for an organization to bring about any change. Now, let us see what are the strategies for managing resistance to change. These strategies are education and communication, participation, facilitation and support, negotiation, manipulation and cooptation, and coercion. So let us see the first strategy, education and communication. First is education and communication. First of all, we need to educate people, we need to communicate to people about all the aspects of change, as to why we need to bring about change, who will bring about change, when we will bring about change, and what are the modalities we need to do to bring about the change, as this would help the people managing resistance to change. Next is participation. That is the golden rule, that if we get the participation of people in the change process, we get their commitment and then they do not resist the change. Therefore, it is important to seek participation of people in the change process. Next is facilitation and support. Sometimes people resist change because they do not get any support from the organization to go with the change process. So in this case, if we provide them the support, if we facilitate the process, then they would easily come forward to accept the change. Next is negotiation. We must have seen many cases wherein trade unions resist change because they do not want computerization to come in the organization. In these type of cases, negotiation can work wonder. We can negotiate with trade unions and give them some due so that they come forward for change processes. Next is manipulation and cooptation. Sometimes we have to resort to this mode of managing resistance to change as well. We have seen organizations where are trade unions which are resisting change. Then what we have to do, we have to highlight that aspect of change which is beneficial to them, and we have to hide that aspect of change which is not so good for them. Cooptation. Cooptation means giving a person some position who is specifically resisting the change. If trade union leader is specifically resisting the change and instigating the team members, then we can make him a supervisor, we can give him a good position so that he easily come forward for the change process. Next is coercion. Coercion is simply use of power, threat to manage resistance to change. That's all, friends, regarding change management. Thank you very much for your time.